In 2017, Saban and Lionsgate released the first feature-length Power Rangers movie in over 20 years. Simply titled Power Rangers and regarded by the fandom as Power Rangers 2017, the movie retold the origin of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers team with a more mature storyline and tone, and introduced many new concepts and ideas that made the movie feel like a nostalgia piece, but also a brand new take on the Power Rangers lore. It was met with very positive fan reception and mixed critic reviews, but overall the biggest draw of the movie was that it barely made its money back at the box office. And considering the mountains of merchandise made by Bandai for the movie that didn't sell at all, from a money perspective, the movie was a bit of a failure. Much like the skipping of Beast Morphers, it seemed like we weren't going to get our second Power Rangers movie under Saban and Bandai. That is, until the franchise was bought by the modern day savior of Power Rangers, Hasbro. They said that they would do a follow-up of the 2017 movie, and I speculated in a video whether this would be a reboot or a sequel. We finally got confirmation when Decker Montgomery, hopefully I'm not saying that wrong, the movie's Red Ranger, revealed in an interview for Stranger Things that the cast of the movie would not be returning for Hasbro's first Power Rangers film. What this means is that Hasbro is getting a fresh start of their own for the movie. But as opposed to Saban and Lionsgate's take on Day of the Dumpster, this movie now has a lot more problems to tackle. It can't really function as a direct sequel because that movie was made by two completely different studios, and Hasbro has to do something very different with this movie because of that. If you do another MMPR retelling, I'm sure everyone will be a little disappointed, but trying to do something so drastically different could maybe alienate fans, which would really alienate the general public. For the most part, people who aren't fans of Power Rangers to a certain degree don't really care about the franchise, and if they do, their favorite series is MMPR because nostalgia and Tommy Oliver. They probably don't even know about the much better MMPR comics or the much better Tommy Oliver. So the movie needs to tackle this strange mix of nostalgia to appeal to the casuals and bring in more money, but it also needs to try and be something new and fresh to appeal to longtime fans and not be a repeat of the previous movie. Not to mention that there can't be any connections to said previous movie. Because of how strange and wild the current position is, I'm going to try to come up with some ideas on what Hasbro could do with their first Power Rangers movie. I'm going to try to limit my ideas here, but keep in mind that in this case we're not limited to a TV budget because now we have a whole movie budget with CG and more elaborate sets. Along with that, I'm not going to really have everything planned out for this movie. It's kind of going to be like Sentai Potential if you watch that, where I took specific aspects and kind of expanded on them for an adaptation. In this case, I'm writing a whole movie, so obviously I'm going to have a little bit more in the story department, but obviously not every idea is going to be fully fleshed out because I'm not really pitching this to Hasbro. I'm pretty sure they're not going to end up watching this video. But keep in mind that this video is really all just for fun. I'm not trying to force my ideas on you or Hasbro, and when they inevitably do something different with their own ideas, I wouldn't be disappointed. I think that the only thing I would be disappointed about is if the second movie never really comes to pass. If you want to talk about your ideas for the next Power Rangers movie or the 2017 one, be sure to follow me on Twitter and join the channel Discord server. Now let's morph into my ideas for Hasbro's Power Rangers movie. So let's get this right out of the way first. I don't think this next movie should be a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers retelling. You could lose a lot of casuals by not making this straight MMPR, but I think that at this point there are enough people who like the 2017 movie who would come back to something Power Rangers. And of course the hardcore fans would be very happy to see something not MMPR. In my ideas, the only thing that I'm really connecting to the original season is maybe the look of some environments and then maybe some colors and the aesthetics. I don't even think we should have the same names for characters. I think that the only similarities here should be in visuals in order to bring in some nostalgia driven people. Despite that, I don't even think we should stick with the dinosaur theme because once again we literally just got that in the last movie and we've been getting dinosaurs into mainline seasons for what feels like forever. The story I have doesn't really lend itself to anything specific other than like generic sci-fi spaceships, so I don't really have anything specific in mind for the motifs. The same applies to the colors. I feel like the original red, blue, black for boys and yellow, pink for girls would be for the best just because it is MMPR. But for the suits specifically, their designs, I feel like that there are two paths we can take. The 2017 designs were very polarizing with the fan base. Some people thought that the alien inspiration was too much of a departure and weren't aesthetically pleasing, while others, myself included, really liked the new visuals and take on the original suits. So the first path I have in mind is to try the opposite and harken back to some classic Power Rangers spandex with a twist. Yes, I know I said spandex. Get your "that's not spandex" jokes out right now. Okay. The main idea I have in mind is an updated version of what was done in the original 1995 Power Rangers movie with this armored look to the base spandex. I thought that those designs did a good job at giving this higher budget look to the original team and making it seem more powerful and updated. Obviously, you're going to need to give just a bit more of an upgrade for the modern times, but using these designs as the main inspiration could be a good way to homage the TV show's use of spandex, but also create this newer, higher budget look. The other idea is also pretty similar in that the movie could use higher budget ideas from other tokusatsu. The main idea I've had, and the one I have on screen right now, is basically Kamen Rider Vulcan as a Power Rangers team. I feel this works because normally Ranger teams are very similar in their designs, so creating this team of very different looking mechanical Rangers, kind of like Q Ranger, would be pretty cool. Like the other idea, in the actual movie the material would be more expensive and higher quality to appeal to a mainstream audience. And since there's going to be a higher budget than in the show, we could also use some CG in the suits, but I don't think there's really a need because one, we already got some of that in the 2017 movie, and I think it's best for the new suits to try and stay more faithful to the normal suits of Toku. But I'm totally down with having some little bits of CG to improve the overall details, like maybe adding some effects to the visors or other parts like the really cool morphing grid effect in 2017. So the story idea I've got for this movie is really crazy to be honest, but I've actually come to really enjoy it and I had a lot of fun writing it. The main inspiration for this one comes from the fact that from a story perspective, maybe we want to try something really crazy and out there to appeal to more mainstream audiences to watch a Power Rangers movie. Think Inception or Interstellar, where they have really amazing visuals and really crazy ideas, and they're very good and very successful movies. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I think the second Power Rangers movie should be directed by Christopher Nolan. But here's my idea anyway. The movie would start off with a fight scene with our Rangers morphed in what looks like the command center. The center is filled with energy and seems on the verge of imploding, exploding, whatever the word is. Our Rangers don't know what to do as they stand there in shock until the Red Ranger takes things into her own hands as she leaps toward the pillar, and the next thing we see is that the pillar releases all of the energy in it and the command center is bathed in it. Cut to black. Power Rangers. A thomasjujube production. Then we fade into our main setting. Now, I say main setting ambiguously like this because I'm not entirely sure where the bulk of the story should take place with our main Rangers. Of course, the obvious choice is a high school, but I feel it's been so overdone in recent years that it would be really awkward to see it crop up once again in a Power Rangers movie. Along with that, if we want this movie to show the world that the franchise is more than just teenagers in high school, we should not have it appear, at least as the main setting for all our characters. I think it would be interesting to have the team be made up of a bunch of people from all walks of life to show that anyone can be a Ranger, kind of like the message in the critically acclaimed Into the Spider-Verse. The only problem I see with this is that without some sort of central location to have all our characters at the start, introductions to them could feel a bit rushed, and other parts later on could also feel a bit rushed. But the basic idea for this opening is that we fade in from the title into an introduction of our characters. Introductions would be pretty Power Rangers-esque, where we have a brief moment with each character that gives us a basic idea of what their personality is like, and then we'll have them all be approached by the mentor, who's actually going to be a girl here for an important reason that we'll find out later. So when the mentor appears, since I don't have all the specific locations for their characters, this could either be a scene where all 5 characters are together with the mentor, or they could be approached separately. All that matters is that the civilians are given Ranger powers and are told that there is an evil at large that they need to stop before it grows too powerful. This scene is basically going to be one of the many meta jokes in the movie that pokes fun at normal Power Rangers and other superhero movies. As said by the mentor, there is no prophecy or chosen one nonsense. These 5 people are needed to stop the threat, that's it. From there, we go into the first action scene of the movie, where our Rangers morph for the first time and are transported to the moon to take down the villainous threat. If this sounds familiar to you, it's because it's intended to be a reference to 2 issues of the Boom Studios Power Rangers comics. This entire action scene basically functions as a a more concrete way to introduce the audience to our Rangers and how they interact with each other as they move through the villain's base on the planet. It doesn't have to be the moon, but I'm just gonna say it is because it's a bit more easier for me to say than some crazy made-up planet that's also probably not gonna get into the movie. The important elements to notice in this sequence is mainly how everyone is really standoffish with each other, mostly because they don't know each other at all, but they're also going to occasionally mention how they're getting some strong deja vu, or mention how they really feel like they should be a Ranger, how natural it feels to be a Ranger in this moment. But we're not going to get too heavy-handed because that could get annoying and feel too Neo-Saban. Eventually, the new Rangers find the main villain, who I'm going to call Zed in honor of the Emperor himself. But who this villain is isn't really important. The main idea I have in mind is Draken, but that's just because I love Lord Draken. I think this should be an original villain for the movie. The name here is just as a placeholder, but also pay tribute to Robert Axelrod. He's not really the main focus in the movie because there's way more focus on plot and the main Rangers here. Behavior-wise, he would act kind of like Weisel in Ryu Soldier or Lothor in Ninja Storm, basically a kind of charismatic villain that can still act menacing and is a threat. It'll help with the fact that we don't focus on the villain so much. He's just an enjoyment to watch on screen even if you don't know much about them. Another thing that would help us with Zed immediately is that he begins to start thrashing our Ranger team around like they're nothing. You basically get the idea that there's no hope for our team, and it turns out to be true, as after Zed knocks the team out of their morphs, he approaches Red and takes his morpher. Saying that his victory was always bound to happen, he could say I am inevitable, but we could get copyright sued. He then attaches the morpher into a contraption along the wall of the room, which causes the room to surge with energy. With his plan fully realized, Zed teleports out of the room, leaving the Rangers stranded. Just when it seems that the machine is going to explode, the Red Ranger, unmorphed, flings himself towards it. The machine explodes, and then we cut to black. Then another hard cut into the first person view of the Red Ranger's residence. We get to hear his thoughts as he begins to wonder what happened, how he got into his room, etc. He gets up from the bed and then sees the 5 morphers of the Rangers on his desk, but he doesn't recognize them at all. He then remembers something, but it's not that he was a Power Ranger. He remembers the mentor and the other 4 Rangers and where to find all of them, and that there is an evil coming, specifically Zed. He doesn't know really much about Zed, but he knows how much of a threat he is, and because of this he goes to find the others and give them the ability to morph and become Rangers. He gives them the powers, tells them to teleport to the moon, and keeps in contact with them via a communicator. At this point, the audience hopefully realizes that we're kind of getting the same thing we saw earlier, but from a different perspective, especially with how one of the Rangers is the same person as the mentor we met in the beginning of the movie. Eventually, we get to the point where the Red Ranger sacrifices himself in Zed's explosion, and then we cut to black again. But now, we get a moment with the consciousnesses of our characters as they travel through this void, this morphin grid of sorts. They work out together what is going on. Using the Ranger powers, Zed has been creating a time loop, which keeps sending the Rangers back with slight amnesia. However, the Ranger who gets her morphin taken away always tries to get it back just before the main explosion on the moon, which results in them always having the morphers again and having the most memory, allowing them to find the other Rangers and keep the loop continuous. This loop is presumed by the Rangers to be done because it essentially removes the Rangers and the powers from that universe completely, allowing Zed free reign to conquer the universe with no one to stop him. The Rangers try to formulate a plan to stop Zed. Instead of using the power of a single morpher that will send the Rangers back in the loop and one has amnesia continuing the loop, they can use all of their morphers together and hopefully spread the power of the explosion amongst them and hopefully stop the loop. However, once they make their grand plan, they begin to be transferred back into their bodies at the start of the loop and lose their memories, once again restarting the whole process. Now, at this point, this is basically going to be maybe like a little bit under 2 hours in the movie. The 2 main moon espionage scenes are meant to be the primary action scenes of the movie. Now we get to relive the Rangers going through this loop in the action scene on the moon. We get other Rangers as the mentor, other Rangers sacrificing themselves, different moments in the moon base fight based on the colors of the Rangers, which I'm not sure I mentioned, they actually will cycle through the colors. Red becomes mentor, maybe back to pink, back to yellow, stuff like that. Adds a little bit of a different aspect to the Ranger colors and kind of makes the whole time loop feel a little more Power Rangers-y. The way the loop is eventually broken is through the deja vu that we mentioned earlier. earlier. Because every ranger has some memory of the previous loops and it takes the form of the occasional deja vu, the ranger's subconscious finds ways to let them know about their plan via little quirks. This is another part of the story I don't have completely thought out, but if you want a similar idea of how this would work, it would be similar to the Kamen Sentai Go Rider special, where little details are given in each round of the loop that eventually build up to provide the final answer to our main characters. So after we get flashes of all the different versions of the loop, we end up at the final loop. By this time, we have our original Red Ranger that we started the movie with back in the role, and the team confronts Zed one last time. They battle Zed, and of course, this is their first battle from their perspective, and they still lose, but from our perspective, the audience, it kind of feels like this team has actually grown, and this is the first time we really seen them fight as an actual team. Zed attaches the red morpher to the machine as usual and disappears, but now the entire team steps up to the machine and also attaches their own morphers. The machine explodes and we cut to black, leaving a little bit of a mystery whether it worked or not, but then when we cut back to the story, we see that the team is all together on the floor of the base. They've broken the loop. When they step up to grab their morphers, they also see that they're slightly different, signaling that they're now going to be stronger than before. But not Zeo, probably just a little change to the suits, kind of like the coins on the chests in the original movie, or maybe some new gold highlights. Zed teleports back in the room and realizes that his master plan has failed. The Rangers have broken the time loop and are still in this world to stop his conquering of it. In his anger, Zed decides he'll do it himself and summons his own evil Zord. Once again, I have no specific idea for how this looks, but my mind always comes back to something Serpentera looking, so it would probably be a reference to that. Because the Rangers are now powered up, they can also summon Zords of their own, because now they technically have some of Zed's powers inside of them due to the explosion, and Zed has his own Zord, so technically the Zords come from the villain in this movie. From here, the rest of the movie is pretty much all action, just like the first movie. We get little individual moments with the Rangers fighting Serpentera and the army that was summoned alongside it, inside of their Zords, and eventually they combine into the Megazord to go one-on-one with Serpentera, which symbolizes how they beat the time loop by working together, a classic symbol of Power Rangers. The ending is also a bit I don't have completely worked out, but it would be pretty much your standard ending, with the Rangers now being sort of friends, but because they don't really have any of their memories really returned from other time loops, they're not besties, but they're acquainted enough that if evil ever struck again, the Rangers would be ready to team up once again and face it. And that's the note we basically end the movie on. If there would be any future sequels, I've kind of made sure that we have a few doors left over to explore, such as more backstory on Zed and the time loop, the origin of the time loop itself, maybe a 6th Ranger of course, or some stuff with the Rangers regaining the memories of the loops, and probably some crazy stuff happening. But for now, that brings us to the end of my idea for Hasbro's Power Rangers movie. This was certainly a long one. I'm sorry it took so long to make, but I really wanted to make sure that this whole idea was kind of fully thought out, and I kind of had a lot of fun with it, so I did want to make sure it was fully thought out. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section what you thought of my ideas. I'm not a professional story writer, and this is the most story I've really written for an idea, so any critiques you may have would be appreciated, but please don't roast me. Oh no. Yeah. If you want to see another video like this exploring some sequel possibilities of my ideas, you can also let me know as well, and also be sure to let me know what you would like to see Hasbro do for their first Power Rangers movie. I'd love to hear your guys' ideas as well. And if you're new here, please consider hitting the subscribe button for more Power Rangers videos, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.